Thank you. All right. Hello and good morning. Thank you for joining today's Proposers Conference for the Catalyst Pre-Development Project RFP. My name is Gretchen James. I'm the project manager for We Prosper Together at Valley Vision. And this webinar is an opportunity for you to get information about the RFP, which was released on November 26th and will remain open until February 2nd. This webinar is being recorded, so the recording will be made available on our website, as well as a Q&A sheet of any questions that are brought up either at this webinar or the previous one that was held on December 4th. So on the next slide, here you will find QR codes to access the RFP. The link shown here and the QR code on the left will take you directly to our application portal, which is hosted by a platform called Submittable. Later in the presentation, we'll share more details on how to navigate that platform, but all submissions are going to be made through this portal. If you would like to view the full RFP in PDF form, you can scan the QR code on the right side of the screen. And this link is also available on our website and the landing page of the application portal. Let's also see if we can get those links put in the chat so you can access them directly. And I'll give everyone a moment here if they want to scan these QR codes. We will be moving through this presentation in the same order as the sections that appear in the RFP. So if you want to follow along, you are welcome to do so. And Chester put in the link for the PDF of the RFP in the chat. Thank you. And we can move on to the next slide. All right. The agenda for today's webinar will be going through segments of the RFP in the order that they appear. So we'll start by going over who and what is eligible for this funding opportunity, followed by the purpose and goals of the Catalyst program. Then I'll pass it off to Alan Lang to cover the application requirements, and I'll then provide some tips for getting started on Submittable, go over the RFP timeline, and we'll close out with a facilitated Q&A. You are welcome to submit questions throughout the webinar using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom window. And as I said, the recording of this webinar will be available on the website, and questions that are brought up at each webinar session will be summarized in a Q&A sheet that will also be posted on our website. So with that, let's get started with the eligibility criteria. Next slide, please. Next slide. So We Prosper Together serves the 8-county capital region, which includes the following counties: Colusa, El Dorado, Nevada, Placer, Sacramento, Sutter, Yolo, and Yuba. Projects must serve one or more of these counties. I want to note that there will not be priority or higher scoring given to projects that serve multiple counties to ensure that our smaller communities are equally competitive in this opportunity. The next slide covers the project types that are eligible for Catalyst funding. This fund is designed to support pre-development project activities. So the state has provided the following categorizations for project types that would be considered to need pre-development work, being exploratory projects, which are those that are in the early stage of development. These projects still require feasibility studies or other activities that prove the viability or potential impact of the project. And last mile projects, which have completed those initial planning activities, but are not quite shovel ready or ready to go. There are still more actions necessary to be ready for implementation. So these are the two project types that are eligible for this opportunity, and we will be providing some examples of what pre-development activities can include later in the presentation. Next slide, please. Projects funded through this program must advance high-quality job opportunities in one or more of the following high-opportunity industry sectors. On the left, we have the priority tradable industry sectors, and these were identified for our region through a data-driven process that analyzed supply chains, talent demand, and industry performance. Additional considerations included our regional strengths, environmental sustainability, and job quality. And these categories were then vetted by our economic development partners and our leadership council. So the tradable industry sectors are our priority sectors, and projects advancing any of these will receive additional points. On the right, you will see our opportunity sectors, which projects are also allowed to advance. These were identified in recognition that growing the tradable sectors of our economy will take time, and it is important to connect people to currently available quality jobs, such as in construction and healthcare. Additionally, tourism is a strong sector that drives local economies, such as in the Tahoe subregion, and the creative economy represents key aspects of all other sectors. Next slide, please. Another requirement for eligibility is that the project directly benefits disinvested communities. So you can see the definition of disinvested communities here, which I will read aloud. Disinvested communities include those suffering from income disparity, systemic racism, racial inequalities, climate change vulnerabilities, historical systemic oppression, geographic isolation, and traditionally excluded groups. In the application, you must outline how the proposed project benefits these groups, and we will provide guidelines on how project activities can intentionally engage and benefit disinvested communities. Next slide. Now I'll go over the funding purpose and the goals of the Catalyst program. Next slide. The Catalyst Fund goals are as follows: to invest in industries that will advance sustainable, future-focused, high-quality job opportunities, to fund projects that ensure workers and disinvested communities are the primary beneficiaries, and to advance projects toward implementation readiness, positioning them to compete effectively for future federal, state, or private funding. Next slide. This opportunity is part of the California Jobs First program, which is broken into phased out funding streams. Initially, there was the planning phase, and this was a 2-year effort that just concluded this past fall. And it involved extensive research, community engagement, employer engagement, and the formation of our collaborative. Now we're in the Catalyst phase, where we are soliciting proposals for pre-development project activities. Out of this $14 million funding stream, we have $9 million dedicated for funding projects that align with our high opportunity industry sectors. Other funding opportunities included in the California Jobs First program are the Implementation and Tribal Opportunity Funds. These are statewide funding opportunities, both set to launch in 2025. Next slide. All right, now I will pass it off to Alan to go over the application.
Thank you very much, Gretchen. So if we can dive into the first slide of this section. What I'll be going through is a little bit about what are the specific activities that the Catalyst funding can cover, what is the application process, et cetera. But I want to make sure we're very clear on the activities that Catalyst funding can cover. As Gretchen had mentioned earlier, that these are projects that are pre-development projects. If you have something that is fully ready to just implement and run, the Catalyst funding opportunity is not going to be appropriate for you. That would be more for example, the state level implementation fund that's going to be coming out. So we'll get into more details. What are we talking about with this pre-development concept? It could be activities such as planning and feasibility studies. These are activities that are really exploring or helping determine a project's viability. Could be feasibility studies, market analysis, conducting environmental assessments and surveys, could be other environmental remediation work needed to move a project forward. Could also be things like site plan or project design development, permitting fees that are needed to get a project location ready, things like that around planning and feasibility. So that is one potential element. I will note on all these 4 different buckets I will talk through. These are just examples, not an exhaustive list. So there might be other things that are also appropriate within these different buckets and categories that I'm discussing. I'll go to the next piece, and that's around like financial and legal frameworks. Could be expenses that are related to either setting up financial or legal aspects of moving a project forward. Legal costs for setting up partnerships or public-private arrangements that are needed to make a project successful. Could be planning costs that are used for establishing the financial tools, such as a regional tax financing district, getting something like that in place, the preparatory work to do that. Could be creating agreements that are helpful for the community, essentially the community benefit agreements. How is the community going to be engaged in benefiting from the work that is done, from the location of this particular project that is being considered? Another aspect might be something like capacity building. These would be investments to strengthen the project teams or the project itself, its ability to plan and execute the project effectively. Things that involved in this might include staffing and training costs, professional development that's needed for team members to make them or allow them to be successful in the effort, developing infrastructure plans, whether it's water or waste systems or other things that might be needed to allow a project to move forward. Could also be things like financial planning associated with the capital projects. So the detailed budgeting, the preliminary budgeting that's needed, helping access and develop and get in line the construction financing that might be needed. So all those would fall under that capacity building bucket. And then the last one I'll note is around pilot projects. Might be something of interest to some of you, but pilot projects are potentially eligible for Catalyst funding if they are able to serve as a true scalable test for broader implementation. What we'd really look for with pilot projects are efforts that can really demonstrate their potential for expansion, and are really promoting or trying new opportunities, new innovative ways of conducting work or moving something forward. So doing so at a scalable level, so you can see, is this possible? Is this feasible? Can this be successful? And if it is, needs to be evidence that it can be scaled up throughout the region as well. So that is kind of the overview of the types of activities that we're talking about. And yeah, Chester, please go ahead to the next slide. One thing that is very central to the overall We Prosper Together effort, to the Catalyst Fund itself, is making sure that there's economic equity. The purpose of this effort is really to make disadvantaged communities, give them opportunity and access to jobs and opportunities, to improve their own economic capacities, economic state. So really want to make sure all projects are incorporating economic equity priorities. You can see the QR code in the upper right-hand corner. I would encourage you all to scan that, link to that. That will take you online to where the economic equity framework exists and lives, and it'll go into more detail about the 3 boxes that you see here and what we mean by economic equity. I'll give a just kind of quick overview of some of what that might include or might involve in terms of your proposal, what we want, things that we might want to see, to really emphasize that you are trying to address the community needs and address disadvantaged communities in particular. One item of that will be around community-centered inclusionary practices. So a lot that will go into this, but really want to make sure that any effort, any project that you're proposing does carefully involve the community that is being served, both the geographic community, could be other communities as well, but might involve items or activities such as engaging trusted messengers that can really help provide meaningful and support meaningful engagement from the communities that you're targeting. Want to see a lot of opportunity for local community participation in decision making throughout the effort, so that It's not just efforts and projects that are being done to benefit said communities, but really engaging and involving those in the planning, in the decision-making, to make sure they're best suited and can be successful for the audiences being targeted. Um, could also involve activities or efforts that are really intended to make sure there's connection to holistic wraparound supports and services that allow the targeted communities to take advantage of those opportunities. So all those are items or elements that might be considered community-centered inclusionary practices. Another aspect of this is around economic inclusionary approaches. Really wanting to advance economic mobility for residents from disinvested communities. Again, that is a central tenet of the We Prosper Together effort and the California Jobs First effort as well. So activities or elements that might be included to support this could be supporting small businesses or entrepreneurial opportunities that really reflect the local community. What is happening there? How can those be advanced? How can they be engaged? Really want to see empowerment and active participation from those local communities. As I said in the prior, that's around decision making. That is making sure that it is benefiting those audiences that are from disadvantaged communities. They have opportunity to engage. They have opportunity to move forward. And it's really serving to serve those diverse needs and is taking into account the diverse needs of those disadvantaged populations. What are the potential obstacles, unique obstacles they might have? How are you overcoming those? Really with that goal and that charge to make sure that there is opportunity for economic mobility for historically disadvantaged communities and disinvested communities as well. And then finally, the last box, data-informed and transparent alignment and coordination. So really want to make sure that nothing is being done either in secret, in the dark, and just being moved forward, but making sure that any decisions, any processes, learnings are really based in data and information that is available to your effort, but then is communicated externally as well to the community as a whole, that you're setting in place. What are those success metrics that you want to track? Data is being collected and communicated out. How is progress being made? But really being transparent in how decisions are being made, what that's based on, and making sure that's communicated with all stakeholders involved in your effort. So again, that's something that is going to be very central in what we're looking for, economic equity priorities, making sure you're including those in your efforts and your proposals and addressing those issues that are really going to help advance disadvantaged communities, disinvested communities, and provide them with opportunity to improve their economic mobility. So if we can go to the next slide. Going to now move into just some of the details of the application process itself. So the first slide I'll cover within this is really getting into the when is it due, how's this done. Applications are due no later than 11:59 p.m. on February 2nd. I will note February 2nd is a Sunday. We're not expecting you to work and put your proposals together over the weekend, but thought that if you could use a couple extra days as opposed to making it due on Friday with all of action, subsequent action happening until Monday, probably better to give you those extra couple days in the weekend if needed. But again, 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, February 2nd, late applications will not be considered, period. If you do not get it in by that deadline, it is not going to be reviewed. It is not going to be up for review or consideration for funding. Within the proposal process, we do have using the submittable system, which again, we'll go over in a little bit more detail later in this presentation. We'll go through the series of questions that are being asked within that program and within that system. In addition to answering those questions, you're going to be asked to include a budget narrative that will be uploaded, work plan that includes milestones. So you'll be uploading that in addition to those narrative questions you'll be responding to within the submittable program. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So I'm going to be going over these next few slides, just a little bit about the details. What are the questions you're responding to? What information do you need to be including? But our rating will be based on your response to the questions, Did you answer all the questions? Was your response providing enough evidence that it was a quality effort, could be a successful effort, and can it achieve the goals of the RFP itself? So we'll be looking for that, and we'll also be considering the geography served. We want to make sure that we're funding applications, proposals across all the different 8 counties that are represented within the We Prosper Together territory. So that will come into play as well as we're making those funding decisions. So going into the detail, what are we actually asking of you? What do you need to have in place to make sure that you're eligible? If you can go to that next slide. So who is eligible? Want to make sure this is very clear. So you can see a variety of different group or organization types that are listed on the screen: nonprofit organizations, academic institutions, community foundations, non-governmental organizations, local governments, labor organizations. So all examples of who is eligible. Want to note a particular group that you won't see here is for-profit businesses. For-profit businesses are not eligible to be the lead applicant. So I'm going to say that again. For-profit businesses are not eligible to be the lead applicant in a proposal. We do encourage, however, for-profit businesses to be partnering with could be a nonprofit group, any one of those that you see, a public agency that you see in these bullet points here, and be involved and engaged and a part of a proposal. It just cannot be the lead. So wanted to emphasize that so it's very clear. Hopefully that makes sense, but if there were any questions, we can come back to that later in the presentation. Okay, so now let's move forward and talk about what are we asking for within the submittal. So there are going to be several different buckets of information that we're looking for. First box that you'll see here is the basic just organizational identifying information. This is the straightforward information about your organization name, includes your federal employer identification number, your FEIN, the address of your location, who the primary contact is, what is the project name, title, essentially, what counties within We Prosper Together region are you serving, and then what is your total funding request. So just the basic proposal information will go there and organizational information. You'll go from there. This is where it really gets into the more detailed oriented pieces of your proposal. Pardon me. So the organizational qualifications will be one of those sections. Here you'll provide a description of your organization. What is its purpose? What is its history? What is your experience? And really giving evidence that you can provide the types of services that you're proposing. What is giving evidence that you can fulfill the project reporting requirements as well, that you have past history and with projects and you've been successful in reporting those and completing those successfully. Also want to include in this section the names and roles of the key personnel that are involved, but also the partners that will be involved with the organization. So who are those partners? What will be their role? Include that within the organizational qualification section as well. If you can move to the next slide. The next section is around project description. This is where you get into a lot of the detail about what actually is the project you're proposing, how you'll be doing it. So provide the overview of the project, what is its purpose, what are the intended outcomes, and then these next few are really important. Want to make sure you're touching on all of these because these again are central components of the We Prosper Together initiative. Need to describe how your project contributes to building a climate resilient economy. You also need to describe how your project aligns with either one of the priority tradable sectors that Gretchen showed on an earlier slide, or one of the opportunity industry sectors, also that Gretchen had shown before in an earlier slide. Describe how your project will benefit directly the disinvested communities and what conditions in the We Prosper Together economic equity priorities will be built into the project to make it successful. You also need to describe how the project will continue to the growth and development of quality jobs within the target sector. So those are all very central elements of We Prosper Together. Make sure you discuss those, you describe how you will achieve those, how you will conduct the work to make sure that those elements are included and are successfully addressed within your effort. The last couple notes here, you do need to state the regions that will be served by the project. That could be the counties, could be more specific to that, a city, a neighborhood, a community that will be served. So be sure to discuss that so it's very clear who you are targeting with this effort. And then finally, outline and discuss how this pre-development funding that you would receive through the Catalyst effort, how that will align with what happens next, the implementation funding or the activation plan around once you have these pieces in place that you're proposing, how will it move into full implementation from there? Let's move to the next slide. So the next bucket that you'll be responding to is around the work plan. So this is where you'll describe in detail or provide in detail the goals and objectives of the project that you have. What is the timeline? What are the key milestones? What are the deliverables that you'll be providing along the way that will help all of us know, are you successful? Are you making adequate progress with this effort? Are you achieving what you sought out to do? You also want to describe within the work plan any collaboration. Who are the partners that are going to be involved? How you are engaging with those groups? If you were leveraging other funds, how you were doing that as well. So include that within the work plan. Also, that stakeholder engagement piece, describing how disinvested communities either have been, or not either, but have been and will be involved in both the planning and design of the effort and execution of the project itself. And then having measurable objectives and performance indicators. So what are those things that are going to be indicative over time as you're implementing this project? Are you making that progress? Are you successful? How is it making the change that you had desired? The last couple items around proposed budget and budget narrative. So we do want a detailed budget that really itemizes your cost, your expected costs. Could be, the personnel involved, materials, travel, subcontractors, other hard costs that you might have with the project. Make sure you detail those in a line item fashion, stating how much is going to be for that. Also provide a budget narrative that goes into detail about how those costs were calculated and why they are necessary for the project to be successful. So provide both a budget itself, the dollar amounts, but an explanation of those costs and why they are needed for the project. And then finally, we do want to note who or understand who your primary fiscal contact is, what their information is, just so we have that on file as well. And then the last that you see on this slide is around sector alignment. All projects that are proposed or that will be considered must align with either one of the priority tradable sectors or the opportunity sectors. If they do not align with either priority tradable sectors or opportunity sectors, they will not be moved forward for consideration. Again, that's a period at the end of that sentence. There is no wiggle room around that. It must align with a priority tradable sector or an opportunity sector, and points will be awarded accordingly. More points will be awarded for priority tradable sectors more so than the opportunity sectors. So just be aware of that as you move forward with your proposal. Okay, next slide. The last few items that we require within the proposal, one is around references. We do look for 2 funder references, include within that the name, contact information for that reference, and a very brief description. This is a paragraph. We're not looking for pages, just a paragraph on what the associated project was that you worked with them, so that we have a sense of kind of, how was it connected? Was it relevant work or not? The references that you provide should be able to speak to your ability to fulfill a scope of work and preferably work that is related to what you're proposing for this project. The middle box that you see here is for applicant and organization documentation for contracting. We do not require you to submit this with a proposal. I'm going to say that again. You do not have to submit this with a proposal, but if you are selected for funding, you will be required to provide eligibility that you can conduct business in the state of California. You will need to provide a listing of your board of directors or governing body. You will need to provide your most recent audited financial statements. Or if you do not yet have a financial audit, we will accept financial statements covering the prior 12-month period or the most recent 12-month period. You also need to provide insurance certificates showing that you have general liability, workers' compensation insurance, etc. And then there might be other documentation that is required as a result of our funding that we receive from the state. Might be other pieces that we need to add as well. But do know that if you are selected for funding, you will have to provide this information. So important for you to know before you put a proposal in. If you know that you would not be able to provide these pieces of information if awarded, would suggest that it might not be a good opportunity for you to apply for this funding opportunity. And then lastly, the appendices. This is optional, but if there is additional information that you want to provide, we do have an opportunity to do that within the submittable system. This might be things like letters of support from groups that you have worked with or groups that you're affiliated with. Other supporting documents, resumes for staff, case studies, past projects that you've been involved in. Anything else that you think helps make the case for why you're proposing what you are, and then you could be successful in implementing the proposed project. Okay, so next slide. The specifics about the application. We're awarding funding. We anticipate that the awards will go through the review process, select the funded projects, and we expect that we'll be awarding applicants in probably I'll say the late spring timeframe, and funding will continue through September 30th of 2026. So we need all projects completed by that date. So whatever you're proposing, it must be concluded by September 30th, 2026. If funding is not expended by then, it will be essentially given back to the state. So again, that's a hard deadline. September 30, 2026 is when all efforts must be completed, and all funding must be expended by that date. What we were asking for, we actually do not have a minimum or maximum award. We are anticipating, though, that awards could be anywhere from the tens of thousands of dollars, up to $1 million. So again, that's just what we're anticipating. But we do not have either a minimum or a maximum for what you can apply for. There is a total of $9 million that is available. And again, we do want to see geographic representation from throughout the 8 counties within the We Prosper Together region. So we'll be taking that into consideration, but know that the maximum that is going to be distributed across all funded projects is $9 million. And then my last point that I'll make on this particular slide is that we don't anticipate that we will award the full $9 million in this round. We are going to open up an additional funding opportunity likely in spring or maybe summer of 2025. So some funds will be held back for that second round of funding as well. And then a final note that I think is good for any applicant knowing going in, kind of what will be the reporting requirements if you are selected for funding. First off, I will note that the funding mechanism will be a reimbursement-based process. So you will incur the cost, the funded applications will incur the cost and then submit monthly invoices to Valley Vision to be reimbursed for those costs. So you do need to know that there will be, a month period of time that you're going out, you're expending those costs, whether it's staffing costs or consulting costs or whatever it might be. You need to have actually expended those dollars before you'll be reimbursed for those funds. So important for you to know as a potential applicant that that's how the funding reimbursement will be provided. We do require monthly invoices coming in. So that's the frequency with which we will be providing those invoices. And in addition, we do require quarterly reporting. The quarterly reporting will be in a format, but really looking for that. What activities have you completed and conducted? What have you bring accomplishments to date? What have been challenges you've experienced? But there will be a formal quarterly reporting requirement that goes with this project as well. And that is it for the reporting and invoicing. So we'll go to the next slide. And I'm going to turn it back to Gretchen to go through a little bit more about that submittable platform that we have discussed a couple times in this project or in this forum so far.
Thank you, Alan. Here are some basic guidelines for getting started on Submittable, and I'll put the link in the chat again for you. So you will need to create a free Submittable account with either an email, Google, or Facebook account. And you are able to save a draft of your RFP submission and return at a later time. If you need to make changes to your proposal after submitting and the deadline has not already passed, you are able to withdraw your application and resubmit. You will receive email notifications from Submittable, so please be sure to safe list emails from the platform and check the email that you use to create your account regularly. Submittable does have a resource center with help videos and articles available to you, and you can also reach out to their customer support team with any technical questions. Next slide, please. Now I'll go over the RFP and project timeline. Next slide. The RFP was released on November 26th, 2024, and will remain open until 11:59 p.m. on February 2nd, 2025. This is the second of two proposers conferences which covered the same material. And again, the recording and written responses to questions received will be made available on our website. Right now, these can be found on the latest page on our website, which we can put in the chat. We have received feedback that our website can be difficult to navigate. We hear you, so we will be working on making the RFP more prominent on the We Prosper Together site before the year ends. Award notifications are anticipated to go out at the end of February, with projects starting on March 1st. Funded project activities must be completed by September 30th, 2026. So now we will open it up for a Q&A session. You are welcome to input your questions in the Q&A feature. I see that some have been coming in throughout the webinar, so thank you for your engagement. And we will open it up to answer some of these live, or if there are questions in the chat, we will try to address those too. Let's see if I can get myself. Okay. And there's that link to our website where you can find this information as well. Okay. I see there's a question here about the reimbursement funding model. Alan, this may be one for you to answer, but I will read it aloud. Says the reimbursement funding model often makes these grants inaccessible and inequitable to smaller organizations serving disinvested communities. Is it possible to grant half or a third of the awarded funding upfront?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And recognize and understand that that is a challenge to have that reimbursement-based model. But that is the mechanism that we're needing to use for this project, is that reimbursement piece. So sticking with that statement that was made earlier, it is going to be a reimbursement monthly invoicing process that we need to use.
Thank you, Alan. I see some questions in the chat. To confirm, yes, the application does have a total points available of 60. And although we do not have office hours currently planned, we are exploring other opportunities for sharing information about the RFP. And we will also have all of this information published on our website available for sharing as well. Questions? Can multiple people work on the same grant? Yes, organizations are able to partner with each other on the application. There will need to be a listed lead applicant organization, which cannot be a for-profit business entity. And Zach Friels has just put information in the chat about technical assistance offerings. So thank you, Zach, for putting your contact information there. Let's see the Q&A. I see a question here about how we will guarantee marginalized communities get a fair chance in this funding opportunity. So in the project criteria, it is required that the project beneficiaries are workers and disinvested communities. So there are, the way the scoring model is designed is to give high scoring to projects that serve those communities and that outline their engagement plan with those communities. So projects that engage with disinvested communities, not only in the outcome and in the service of the project, but also in the decision-making and planning of the project, that can all be outlined in the application for meeting those equity criteria points. I see a question here on the definition of creative economy. All of the definitions of our sectors can be found in our regional plan, which I will put the link for in the chat. And there you can find more detail on how we determined what these industry sector categorizations were, and also information about middle skilled jobs in each of the sectors and how they meet the quality or opportunity job criteria. Creative economy is a little bit unique in the way that it can play a part into each of our industry sectors. So within any industry sector, there could be design work for promotional materials, advertising materials. So creative economy is a little bit unique in that way. I'm going to attempt to answer Eliza's question and let me know if I address it properly. But the reason why this funding opportunity is different than years past is because the state is taking a new approach to inclusive economic development by having regions develop their goals and plans on that regional scale. So allowing us to reflect the voices of our communities and engage with our communities in how we determine what our goals are, determining our priorities, and what we want the growth of our region to look like. So this is a little bit different. Typically, economic development has been done from a state down model. So this is our opportunity to unify our region under a shared goal and uplift that to the state and fund projects that reflect those goals. I hope that answered your question. And we received a question about accessing information on our community ambassadors. So we do have that information on our website as well. Let me just make sure I can pull it up to put in the chat for you. Thank you. You beat me to it. I don't see any other unanswered questions, but let me know if I have missed any. I don't see any others. Oh, never mind. From Zoom to copy the chat. Let me see if I can do that. But the chat will also be available with the recording. So the chat is, I'm not sure how to grant you all permission to save it, but it will be available with the recording. There's a question in the chat about the project inventory form. Thank you for bringing this up. I will clarify the project inventory form is not a direct connection to this RFP process. So if you submitted a project idea into that form, that does not also mean that you have submitted a proposal for receiving funding. The project inventory form was part of the planning process where we were gauging project ideas that were already occurring in the region or that people were thinking of in the region so that we could help build an idea of what priorities already existed and where work was already being done. So this helped us in narrowing in on our industry sectors and our opportunity sectors. Projects submitted to the project inventory form that want to apply for Catalyst funding will have to submit a proposal through Submittable. There's another financial question, Alan, that I'll open to you. It says, can the lead organization cover its overhead charges? If so, what percentage is allowed?
Sorry about that. Trying to get off mute. Uh, Let me clarify on the indirect overhead charges. We'll put that out in the written Q&A to clarify what is allowed, what would be the top threshold of that. So we'll put that out in the written Q&A.
Thank you, Alan. And we have some information as well on information sessions on this RFP opportunity. from our community ambassadors happening in the chat. So thank you all for providing that contact information. Their information can also be found on our website and will be included in the Q&A sheet as well. Right.
And sorry, Gretchen, I'll note, I see one other question in the Q&A. Asking about the asking about the advances for grant awards. Two notes on it. In terms of why, the reimbursement piece, there are very strict parameters around opportunities for grant advances. Have also the internal structure of what the liability of giving those is. And it's something that as the fiscal sponsor organization, Valley Vision is unable to assume the liability on a advance payment if it was across, I'll give the maximum, like if everyone asks for advance payment, services weren't provided, we do not have the capacity to be able to afford those dollars and not recoup to be able to pay back to the state if the state was finding that ineligible expenses were in place or were funded. So we as a fiscal sponsor do not have the ability to cover that liability. So there is all that what I'm stating is a distinction between state allowances, what the fiscal sponsor is able to, in this case, Valley Vision is able to provide.
Thank you, Alan. I had misread that question, so thank you for taking the lead on that. There's a question here. What is the expected delay between invoicing and receiving payment? I'll open that to Alan, but I do believe it is a 30-day or 1-month period, correct?
Correct, Gretchen. Yeah, it'll be invoice received, less than 30-day turnaround for payment.
Right. I also see a hand up. We do ask that you submit any questions into the Q&A feature or in the chat so that we can save it in written form to publish on our Q&A sheet if there are more questions. Have just a few more minutes with each other here. Thank you all so much for participating. We'll stay on a little bit longer in case more questions roll in. But of course, you are always welcome to email us questions at info@weprospertogether.org if you didn't get a chance to do so today. And that email can be found in the chat. This recording and the Q&A sheet will be available on our website by the start of next week, hopefully by the end of this week. Thank you all. All right, I think we can go ahead and close the recording.